Hey everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is Locked On Sports Minnesota. I am so excited football is back. I know everybody's been waiting. There's been countdowns, there's been parties. Do you have a charcuterie board for training camp? I don't know. I would love to see your charcuterie board for training camp. But with training camp back, Twins at the trade deadline, the Olympics are starting. That means sports are starting to sport again. You know what that means? Get your bets in. But we got so much we could talk about. I mean, we could talk about the WNBA stuff. We can talk about the Caitlin Clark versus Sue Bird and breaking records and, Angel Reese, Rookie of the Year. There's so much to talk about, but we got to get to these topics. I got Sam Ekstrom joining me, Reggie Wilson, and Julia Daniels from Care 11. And we are going to give you a great show today, people. Every Friday we're here, but make sure you check us out on YouTube. Just download the YouTube app and use your email address to subscribe. But you know what? With no further ado, let me get to these topics. What you got for us today, Sam?
Ron, I actually have a Locked On charcuterie board with the football field painted on it. No lie. That was one of the company gifts, and I wish I had it right now to show you.
And I did not. That was not scripted, by the way, people. That was literally unscripted, so that worked out perfect.
I got to bust that thing out to celebrate the start of training camp, though it hasn't been super celebratory because the Vikings have lost one cornerback, Mekhi Blackmon, and Shaq Griffin apparently went down yesterday. What do they do at cornerback? We'll get into that.
And should the Twins be active? Trade deadline is approaching. We've already seen some movement. Let's talk about it.
And there's more to training camp than just the cornerbacks. There's the quarterbacks as well. We'll talk about all that, just kind of generalizing what we've seen in day one and day two so far.
Yeah, not only is Shaq and Mekhi Blackmon out, but Najee Thompson on the PUP to start training camp. So that's 3 down. Plus, we already know what happened with Kyrie Jackson. I know the Vikings, I don't know if you guys saw it, but the Vikings painted a white KJ with a purple circle and a yellow outline in the back of the grassy knoll area, the hill. So that's going to be up through training camp. They're going to do a bunch of other stuff. So there's a lot going on with that cornerback room in Minnesota. And so I know Sam's going to have a lot to talk about that. I know everybody has ideas. I saw a Vikings player tweet that he's ready to come back to Minnesota. Former Vikings players. We'll talk about our thoughts on that. I got a audible question for you guys about that one.
The road is closed.
But PJ Fleck went to the presser. Now, Deshaun Foster, that's my guy. Drafted together. We'll talk about that. His press conference with UCLA joining the league and PJ Fleck, as well as I talked to Max Brosner's agent today. Max Brosner is going to come on the Ron Johnson show, but we also had Darius Taylor recently. So we'll talk about all that and much more coming up. But I want everybody to know today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Just download the Gametime app, use code Locked On and get $20. If you don't know what the Gametime app is, people, just Google Gametime. It's spelled just like it sounds. Gametime. Download the app, go on the site. You can get tickets to any sporting event, but the best price is also you can see your seats. I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that? And then you have to worry about scalpers. Tickets are right there on your phone. Most stadiums, just about every stadium now, they take this as a ticket. You can scan it and you're in the building. You don't have to worry about handing cash to anybody and it being a fake ticket. Not to go way back into the Wayback Machine, but back in the day, one of the episodes of The Family Matters, Eddie Winslow bought tickets that were not real. Him and Steve Urkel went to jail. So you don't want to be like Steve Urkel. Get your tickets on the Gametime app. Use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Well, you know what, people? It's time to, yeah, Reggie, you like that, Family Matters. It's time to jump into the show, people. We have to talk about training camp. Now, I've been out to training camp. I've seen Julie out there. I've seen Reggie out there. By the way, Reggie's 6'5", and Julia lost Reggie at training camp. I don't know how you lose a 6'5" person in a red shirt, but she did lose Reggie at training camp.
Behind the bushes, sitting in the shade. Give me a break.
But she lost a 6'5" person. So if you ever want a babysitter, I don't know if I would consider Julia because she lost a 6'5" human being at training camp. But we got to talk about this quarterback situation. Sam, take it away.
Yeah, the cornerback situation's a little bleak right now. I mean, I think if you were circling position groups that were a bit concerning going into camp, probably would have circled cornerback. And then down goes Mekhi Blackmon. Obviously, the tragic situation with Kyrie Jackson does complicate issues too. Yesterday, Shaq Griffin went down. We don't have really a report on that. It doesn't sound as serious as Blackmon's injury, maybe an ankle, I've heard speculation on. But they're dropping like, flies at the moment injury-wise, and the Vikings need some kind of support. They bring in Duke Shelley. That's one avenue. But do they need more than that? Can the Vikings count on a depth group of Andrew Booth, who's injury-prone, Duke Shelley, who we saw great things from in 2022, but not really at any other point in his career. And then, Jalen Williams, the UDFA from last year, AJ Green, the UDFA from this year. There's not a lot of help there. You're counting on Byron Murphy and Caleb Evans to carry the load. You got Josh Metellus, who's going to have to play a lot of slot in this case. It is a pretty dire situation at this point. So you look at the free agents available. What do you do if you're the Vikings? What do you do if you're Kwesi? You've got the cap space. You've got some big names out there. Now, they're aging names. They're maybe washed. We don't know if they have anything left in the tank. Stephon Gilmore is almost 34 years old. Patrick Peterson, old friend, is 34 years old, recently cut by Pittsburgh. Steven Nelson, 31. Kawan Williams, slot guy, 33. Eli Apple plays for somebody new every year. He's almost 29. So you've got names, but if you bring someone like that in, are you bringing in talent? Would you rather go with the veteran or try to elevate some of these young guys on your roster? Like, this is a massive moment for Kwesi and a big moment for Brian Flores too, because if they decide that they trust their guys that they have in-house, you can get so easily exposed if your cornerback play is subpar. If the pass rush is good, the linebackers are good, the safeties are good. If your cornerbacks are on an island out there, which is one of the few positions in the NFL defensively where you really are mano a mano, if they're getting exposed, that could harpoon all of their defensive plans. So I think they need reinforcements. I think you got to bring in at least one body, one veteran to help out and see what happens. Try to find someone on a cost-friendly deal. You have the money. They need help. And maybe it's a trade. Maybe the Marshawn Lattimore deal that was whispered about comes to fruition. But I think they need to do something to address this depth issue.
Yeah, Reggie, you were at a training camp. I mean, we saw him go down. I told Sam and them I saw him go down, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I kind of was joking with Tatum, like, I hope he gets up. These guys are always just joking around and act like they're tired. And then, of course, later I find out he tore his ACL. So with all this going on, Reggie, what are your thoughts? Do you get a veteran? I know you said roads are closed, but they have always been closed when he's around. So you maybe have spoken it into existence. We saw Xavier Rhodes tweet out that he's looking to come back to a Vikings game. And then some people were like, oh, man, you should come back and play. And he's like, I got one left in me, coach. So sign me up. I know, Reggie, you don't think Rhodes should be opened up to be closed again, but Sam named some great veterans. One, any veterans that jump off the clock, the list when he said that? And then what are your thoughts on these cornerbacks?
Yeah, it's just a tough situation. I think that was one of the things that was needing to be addressed the most is the cornerback position. And they did what they could in the offseason to try to do that. Obviously, you can't, account for what happened with Kyrie Jackson, just a tragedy. But then you lose Mekhi Blackman, who played 15 games last season. But now I feel like you're kind of in a dire situation where you just kind of do what you need to do. And I think what needs to be done, one of the top corners who are still out there, it's kind of baffling me that he is still out there. Widely considered one of the best in the game at one point, Xavier Howard. He's right there. Why don't you just give him a 1-year incentive-laden, big contract? They got $17 million in cap space to try to make something work. He's 31 years old, but he's motivated. He's got some kids, got a few kids that he needs to, pay for, got some mouths to feed. But I think, at one point, he was considered one of the best cornerbacks in the league. You paired him with Jalen Ramsey down in Miami, and they were pretty dynamic duo, but Miami decided they wanted to move on. So he's still looking for a job. Stephon Gilmore is still looking for a job. I think either one of those two guys could help. And then also just bring a veteran presence to the room. But I think they're in a spot now where they can't just go dumpster diving, if you will. They can't really just go bargain shopping for a guy because they need some legitimate talent.
I think Xavier is embroiled in some court things right now. They may have to let come to fruition before they make a move. That's probably why he's still out there. I was curious about that too, and I think that's the reason.
Yeah, and his stuff is more of domestic stuff because I know he has some kid issues and some other stuff. So hopefully he gets that figured out, and hopefully, we know social media can go crazy with stuff. But when you think about Julia, here's the list because when they update these rosters, man, the internet is fast. It just happened, but here's what the Vikings cornerback situation that are available if week 1 comes up because of the PUP, you can't come out until they release you. Then you got to, whatever, I think it's the week or whatever, you have to clear it. So Byron Murphy Jr., Andrew Booth Jr., and Kobe Francis, those are your 3 left corners. Your right corners are Caleb Evans, Jalen Williams, and Duke Shelley. With those 6, do you feel 100% confident that they can get you? And again, Shaq still is on here because they haven't even said what happened to him, but I'm taking him off of this because a lot of times when they say nothing, it usually means something. If they were to come out and say, oh yeah, he's fine, he just tweaked his ankle, he'll be good in a week, but they've said nothing. So hopefully they're still just evaluating. Maybe he has to get an MRI at TCO today. And then they'll get or he probably got it yesterday, and then they'll see what the x-rays look like. But Julie, with those 6 names, do you feel like they have to bring a guy in?
Yes. Remember last year? It was not great. It was not great, especially when
I forgot about last year.
After Byron Murphy went down, it was like, all right, there's the entire corner room. Yeah, they have to. I will say Shaq Griffin was walking off fairly normally off of the field at the end of practice yesterday. He didn't stop and talk to media. He rejected those interviews because he did have to go get checked out by trainers, but he was still out there when practice ended. And he seemed to be like when he was asked for interviews and whatnot, he was like, no, I can't, guys, right now. I got to go inside and do some stuff. It wasn't like there weren't any dramatics. He wasn't limping. There wasn't anything like that. So fingers crossed on that. I know Shaq Griffin was also, Byron Murphy was the only vet last year for the most part who had any real league experience. And if Shaq Griffin is hurt because he was supposed to be the other veteran in the room, then you're kind of up a creek without a paddle at that point, especially if something happens to Byron Murphy. So I think, there's a lot of concern here. I will say Xavier Howard is a name that I've seen all over Twitter with Vikings fans. They're like, why don't we go get this guy? That kind of thing. But yeah, they're going to have to figure something out. I know, Jacoby Francis, what they signed him yesterday or something like that. So yeah, things are not looking great. I will say I did talk to Byron Murphy yesterday, and it was just which is, typical of him when he usually speaks. It's very straightforward, straight and narrow. Just gotta keep locked in, keep doing our job, play with a chip on our shoulder, that kind of thing. I think he leads that cornerback room pretty well. I think a lot of guys look up to him, and he also looks up to Brian Flores so much, and it kind of trickles down pretty well with that room, but still being the lone veteran, especially if something is wrong with Shaq Griffin. But also Byron Murphy's the only one that has experience in Flores's offense as a veteran. So, it's just a tough situation right now. But yeah, if you ask me about those 6, I say, they need some help.
And when you look at the best remaining free agents that are left, and we all named the names, but I know Reggie wanted to hate on Xavier Rhodes. I wasn't just talking about Xavier Rhodes, Reggie, but that was one of them. Of course, we saw the tweet. He wants to come back to Minnesota. Of course he does. I mean, what else would he want to do? But Chandon Sullivan was a Viking. He's still out there. He knows kind of the area. He doesn't know the Flores system, but he knows the area. And he also have, I guess he kind of knows the Flores system. And then you have Patrick Peterson. Of those 2 former Vikings, Patrick Peterson and Chandon Sullivan, would you take a flyer on either one of them? And I'm just really quick around the horn, Sam.
Peterson, yes. Chandon's a slot guy. I think with Peterson, you get a little more outside versatility. I know he's 34, but he's very savvy and can kind of win with his veteran mental presence. So I would try Patrick Peterson again, who really did great under 2 different defensive schemes here with the Zimmer scheme and then the Donatel scheme. So I think he's smart and versatile enough to be good in a 3rd scheme here in Minnesota.
Reggie.
On P2?
Yeah. Would you do it?
I mean, sure, why not? But I think
so. Now you're questioning it. So now, would you go Stephon Gilmore or P2? I'll give you a different one.
I will go Gilmore. over P2. If you look at some of the tape from P2 from last year with Pittsburgh, it was a little spotty. I think he still can play, but if you're looking for him to be high impact and give you a lot, I think you probably would do better with Stephon Gilmore, and Julia probably would know a little bit better because she was locked in on the Cowboys last year.
Yeah, I would go Gilmore for sure. I think P2 is starting to show his age. They're only, I think, a year apart in actual age, though. But in terms of play, Gilmore looks a lot younger than P2 does out there. But that being said, I spent 1 year covering P2 when he was here, and he did bring. I mean, he was a true leader on that Vikings defense, and it made a huge impact with them. But how well that plays in Brian Flores' defense is, something that's also a toss-up too. But yeah, I would say Gilmore plays much younger than P2 does. So of course I would go with Gilmore, and I'm also a Cowboys fan. So.
And are there any Adoree Jackson takers? Does Adoree Jackson jump over than Stephon Gilmore for anybody?
I mean,
I wouldn't be mad.
The age is more appealing, and
correct.
Up until last year, statistically he fell off the map a little bit, but up until then he'd been fine. So I don't know if that's an anomaly or what. A lot of times these cornerbacks, they hit the cliff fast, and you don't know when it's going to happen, and it just happens. So that's why people would be nervous. I get that. But he'd had a really good career up until last year.
Yeah, because
funny enough, I played basketball with Adoree Jackson before he went off to USC. We're from the same place.
Okay, so you would take him then?
I would. I mean, especially being that he probably wants to redeem himself. As Sam said, didn't necessarily play his best. I think he would probably be motivated to try to get another deal and play at his best.
Because when you look at the Brian Flores defense, we already know what he's looking for. He's not asking his cornerbacks to cover a ton of time. He's not asking his cornerbacks to be out there like Deion Sanders. We know Adoree Jackson signed a 3-year, $39 million deal with the Giants. With the annual salary of $13 million. So what would he be willing to play for? And a lot of times, he's made $50 million over his deal. His 2024 cash is zero. So he's probably willing to take, because he's an unrestricted free agent. So he's probably willing to take whatever a team's going to give him if it comes down to it at the last minute. His 2017 to 2021 rookie contract, he played pretty well under it. And like Sam said, it kind of is like he hit like a little bit of a lull, a little bit of a cliff, but also in times that can become mental. But his experience is only 6 years, so he's younger. He was a first-round pick. And like Reggie said, he played some big-time ball in college. Coming out, Adoree Jackson, everybody assumed he was going to be the next Jalen Ramsey, or he might be, like he had that type of persona, movement, ability. A younger guy, and I go to Josh Metellus, what Brian Flores does with Josh Metellus. A younger guy, I feel like he gets a lot out of him. And so when I'm looking at this cornerback situation, I think they do need a guy. Who it is, we don't know. I just hope it's not a guy that's so old that when he gets here, he can't practice every day. And everybody's like, and that's why I like Adoree Jackson. I like the youth. I like the fact that, so I look at Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold under Kevin O'Connell, I think it's going to be good. Under Adam Gase, I think he was scared for his life because Adam Gase didn't know what was going on. I don't think Adam Gase knew he was in New York half the time. But when you think about what he's going to get out of Brian Flores, I think Brian Flores can go to Adoree Jackson and say, hey, look, man, this is what I'm looking for you to do. Again, also, this team is younger now. Blake Cashman, you got Ivan Pace Jr., you got Dallas Turner, you got Grenard, Van Ginkel, you got Harrison Smith as the oldest guy. But other than that, the rest of these guys around Adoree Jackson are young. Byron Murphy still plays. Cam Bynum is young. Like Josh Metellus is young. So I think Adoree Jackson would fit right in. He wouldn't walk in and feel like I'm the young guy around these veterans. He would come in like I'm a veteran around a bunch of younger veterans like me. And I think when that happens, sometimes you create a group of guys that gel and they become really good together. So I think Adoree Jackson could be the look. The problem is, or not, the question is the money. Was he willing to take? And ask up. I think you were standing by us, Julie, for a minute, but Rob Brzezinski went walking right by us. I think that was Wednesday. And that's the first thing we all joked about is like, man, where are you finding all this money from? Because we were laughing about the Christian Darrisaw. So I don't know what Rob Brzezinski's going to do, but he is a magician with the money. He loves the jokes because he says he sees them on online too. When people are like saying like, man, where does he find his money? He's like, it's not like I'm finding money. He's like, I just know we have the money and how to move it around. He's like, I don't know why people are so confused about what we're doing. And the one thing people don't understand is the language. He said there's a lot of language in these contracts that, if you read it, you'll get the true numbers. He said, what we're seeing is the agent reported numbers to, what's his name? Adam Schefter. Because the game played with that is Adam Schefter tweets it out. His agent, whether it's Rosenhaus, whoever gets the credit. And now other players are like, oh, Rosenhaus just got him paid. Oh, I got to go sign with Rosenhaus. And then when you actually look at the numbers and the actuals, like Michael Vick's, I think Michael Vick's actual contract was 75% of what was reported. But that was all reported because escalators are in their incentive. So maybe they can incentive late in the Dory Jackson. Hey, if you do this, if you have this many picks, if you make a Pro Bowl, if we make the playoffs, XYZ, if we're the top 10 defense, there's a lot of things you can do to incentivize a cornerback to want to be on a winning team and a part of an organization has a chance in the next couple of years. And then also to practice with Justin Jefferson every day, that's going to make him better. But we got to move on to takeaways from training camp because we know Reggie and Julia were there. We know they were out there. Of course, we know Julia lost Reggie. We've forgiven you now. We found him. He's here. But Julia, what did you see at training camp? Let us know. What are some things you observed at training camp?
Well, I mean, everyone wants to know about the quarterbacks, right? They want to know what Sam Darnold looks like because nobody's been out there to see. And how's JJ McCarthy picking things up and this, that, and the other. Sam Darnold did talk for the first time. It's like so funny to say he talked for the first time at training camp, but it's like day 2. So of course, he talked yesterday. He seems to be picking things up pretty well. There's not been a moment where I've been watching practice because, for those of you that don't know how it works for us media, you're allowed to film for a certain portion of practice and then they start actually running plays. And that's when you have to put your cameras up and you just watch. So you just kind of report on what you see at that point. There's not been a point where we're all like, wow, that was trash or that was terrible or anything like that. I will say he's definitely been testing out his new weapons, his fun new weapons, and guys like Aaron Jones and obviously Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. I will say it's been so interesting to see a running back catch as many passes as Aaron Jones has in practice. So it's refreshing because I don't think the Vikings have seen that since I don't even know when, like 2015 or something like that. But I will say everyone wants to know about the quarterback. Sam Darnold looks decent. JJ McCarthy hasn't done anything either. I mean, we've only been out there 2 days. JJ McCarthy hasn't done anything where we're like, wow, that was really boneheaded or stupid or what was he thinking there, that kind of thing. Sam Darnold talked about himself picking up this really complex playbook. And he said, if he's feeling more confident in it, obviously it's a process of learning this offense. But he has looked into what, Kirk has said about the offense and that kind of thing. And he's really diving into it. He's sitting down with not just the quarterbacks, but also he's sitting down with Justin Jefferson and his receivers and other guys in the offense to figure out, what works best, how this works, and guys that have been in the offense longer, obviously, than he has. He also said JJ McCarthy's picking things up pretty well, and that he's really embracing his role as mentor to JJ McCarthy in the quarterback room and getting him ready for league play. But yeah, I think the main thing has just been that we haven't seen anything offensively where it's embarrassing or something to be concerned about. So Vikings fans can hopefully be a little bit excited about that. And Justin Jefferson looks every bit of every dollar that they spent on him already in day 2. So there's that as well. But yeah, I would say quarterbacks look good. Also, tight ends look decent even without TJ Hawkinson. Josh Oliver was making some decent catches yesterday at practice. So that was a bit of a surprise. Alec Lewis from KSTP and I were sitting watching and we were like, that was Josh Oliver that just made that catch there. So he looked very athletic for such a huge guy. And he was making some plays out there. So that was interesting. Johnny Munt caught a few too from JJ McCarthy yesterday as well. So things look pretty decent so far. But again, only 2 days.
I think they watched this last Friday, Julia, where I ranted. I said, don't bury JJ McCarthy. I don't want to see him with the 3s. I want to see him with the 2s getting opportunities. It sounds like he's been getting all those second team opportunities at least. Is that correct from what people have seen?
Are you talking about JJ McCarthy?
JJ McCarthy's been with the 2s a lot.
He's been with the 2s a lot. He and Nick Mullins have kind of split the backup duties. There's been a few throws to Jordan Addison, which I guess technically would be the 2s from JJ McCarthy. We haven't seen JJ to Jets. But yeah, it's been a lot of rotating he and Nick Mullins. I will say Nick Mullins, I felt like when I was shooting practice yesterday was getting a few more reps with the backups. But the day before, I felt like JJ McCarthy was getting a few more reps with the 2s than Nick Mullins was. So I think it's just kind of a rotation right now.
Yeah. I respect that, and I like that. I'm glad to see that he's getting to throw to some legitimate targets and getting some legitimate protection from at least backups and not stuck with the threes the whole time. I think you've gotta elevate him. You gotta let him fly. And I keep seeing Jalen Naylor's name pop up. I mean, once again, third straight year where he's got all this momentum as maybe a wide receiver 3 candidate in training camp. I hope he goes out and stays healthy and takes that job. I mean, I think if they don't bring someone else in, he's someone that could really fill that void in a meaningful way. I think he's got some deep capabilities, intermediate, short. I think he can create separation. He's got good hands. I saw one highlight reel catch he made yesterday. So I'm watching Jalen Naylor's name. I'm team Jalen right now.
Yeah, I think they really want I was talking to some of the beat writers and stuff too. I think they really want Jalen Naylor to kind of just ascend to that wide receiver 3 status. I think, Kevin O'Connell's been talking him up, I feel like, for the last couple years, just waiting on him to be healthy enough to really step into the lineup and consistently be available, because the ability is there, as you see from camp. And as we've seen anytime that he's been out on the field, he has the ability. Is just you can't seem to see him healthy as much as they need him to be. And so with that wide receiver 3 job kind of up for grabs, you got Brandon Powell out there, you got Naylor out there as well. I think it's his for the taking if he wants it. And I think Kevin O'Connell really wants to see that. As far as the quarterbacks, I think and I'll ask Ron a question after I say this, but what really strikes me is just how easygoing Sam Darnold seems right now. Like he's just out there just letting it rip. And I know we had a lot of reports from camp last year when he was with San Francisco. It was like, oh, is Brock Purdy going to be back in time? Is he going to be healthy for week 1? And Darnold basically beat out Trey Lance, who they drafted in the first round. And at the end of camp, Lance was traded to the Cowboys and Darnold was the backup and was going to be the starter for San Francisco if Purdy couldn't give it a go. So it just speaks to the talent that Darnold does have. And some of those throws we've seen, especially that one yesterday to Jets. I asked Justin Jefferson on Wednesday what the chemistry has been like, and that was the answer that he had that kind of has been going around, where he's like, yeah, JJ's coming along and Darnold's, throwing bombs out there, and he just continues to do that. The arm talent is there. But Ron, that was the question I was going to ask you. 2 days in, they haven't put on the pads yet. Like, how much should we glean from what they look like? Because, I mean, JJ McCarthy looks very confident right now. He looks like he took that time away in between camp and training camp to really work on himself, and he looks more confident out there with his throws. He's throwing some accurate passes, and it looks like he has a lot of zip out there on his throws as well. But they're in shorts. Does that really matter much? Should we take much from it?
Well, so I don't know if you guys saw the Joe Burrow tweet. Somebody just tweeted talking about Joe Burrow. Looks like he's Pro Bowl ready, but then he throws the ball like 15 yards past Jamar Chase. So I didn't look at who tweeted it, and then I looked and it was like NFL memes. I should have known better. Like, I was assuming it was a legit like beat writer or somebody, or I just was scrolling through, and then it happened this morning or last night, and then I look and I'm like, oh, it's a joke, but it was funny. So that's what I look at. Guys making bad throws like that, and they don't have on pads. And again, Joe Burrow is a Pro Bowler. We know that he's one of the best. But if that was a trend and not a mirage, like if JJ McCarthy and Sam Darnold were like constantly missing curls and comebacks, here's the thing: even without shoulder pads, throwing a curl is timing. Throwing a deep ball is timing. Hitting the guy, like, think about the Devontae Adams receiver stuff from Netflix, and how many times Jimmy Garoppolo just had to drop it in a bucket. He's wide open. He just had to throw it a little bit sooner on a dig, and he's getting him killed. Josh Dobbs got Justin Jefferson killed because he didn't throw it soon enough, and he let him into traffic. That's the stuff that without pads, can you not get me almost killed? Because Justin Fields got a lot of, I don't know if you guys saw the Justin Fields love he just got from the NFL Instagram account. And they're like, Justin Fields had a day. One of the plays, he would have got absolutely blown up. Number 25 blitzed off the edge, and Justin Fields rolls out the other way. But the number 25 literally almost hits him, stops, Justin Fields then runs and then makes a throw down the field and somebody's wide open. Of course he's wide open. They had a zone dog blitz on. He's not getting to that. And so stuff like that is where I'm like, I'm not putting my money on Justin Fields. But with J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold, they're making these throws. Like the one to Jalen Naylor, it was a little bit underthrown. Jalen Naylor had to wait for the ball. But again, it still was thrown too far for the DB to get to the ball. And so little things like that. Like, are they completely off target? No. Are they throwing the ball too high? That's problems. If they're just throwing it and they're on target, Justin Jefferson's making one-handed catches, all that kind of stuff. I saw Julia, I think she tweeted or Tatum tweeted somebody talking about, yes, we are back. Justin Jefferson's right hand did it, And so, I put a little bit on it. Do I put a whole lot on it? Not a whole lot, but I do put a little bit into it. Like if it's bad, then you got to be like, oh my God, it's going to get worse with pads. But if it's good and to great now, pads is just going to maybe amplify it a little bit. You might have a little bit of regression because you got rushers and all that stuff, but I think they'll be fine. My quick takeaways from training camp. One, again, I go back to the music. I know it's simple things like that and people don't really understand it, but if you were there last year for training camp and the music and the vibe early on compared to the vibe now, it's just more vibey. I don't know if that's a word, if I can use that, but I don't know if you guys even know who Casanova is, but he puts the ER after every word. But Brodier, like they were out there clowning her. Like it was funner. Like they were having a good time. And that's where, like, I saw Dallas Turner do something. I saw Grenard. I saw somebody yell across the field, I see you, Grenard. Like it was way different right now, the vibe is, than it was last year. So that's why I am excited to see what happens, because sometimes youth, think about Miami Dolphins, Flores, and how he changed them. Think about the young Cincinnati Bengals and how they've come. Sometimes youth actually creates a different type of winning that you don't need superstar veterans. Also, by the way, real quick before we jump into it, we got a word from our sponsors coming up, and then we're gonna hit on more topics, especially the Big Ten, because there were some flops and there was some success at the Big Ten Media Day. We'll talk about that. But I don't know if you guys saw, the Vikings just called a stray by Stephen Jones, the Dallas Cowboys CEO. He basically said, we can't sign a receiver to over 30 million because we don't have a quarterback. We have a quarterback getting paid a lot of money, unlike the Vikings. Like, why did the Vikings have to catch a stray? Like, I don't understand that. And so really quick,
quarterback who shouldn't be getting paid what he's getting paid. It's just like, I'm a Cowboys fan and I am so over. I'm so over.
And here's the exact quote.
I'm not even a fan of this Cowboys team. I'm just like, Cowboys,
He said the Vikings aren't paying a QB or anyone on that roster to this point, for that matter, which makes it easier for them to pay Justin Jefferson $35 million a year.
Yeah, because they paid Dak Prescott for what?
Yeah. And then he also said Michael Parsons and CeeDee Lamb both want to become the highest paid non-quarterbacks in football history, which will be over $35 million. It's going to be tough to pay them both, but this is an ongoing situation we'll deal with. So with that said, again, back to Rob Brzezinski really quick before we get out of here, before we get to a word from our sponsors, because we went a little long, but training camp is fun. Do you think the Vikings, this is the way to do it, is to, you got Sam Darnold for 2, you keep JJ McCarthy on your rookie deal, and then max out this Justin Jefferson contract so you keep him happy, and then maybe not pay a ton of defensive guys like Zimmer did in the past? Really quick, Sam, do you think that's the way to do it?
Yeah, I mean, this is how all the AFC contenders, made deep playoff runs in the past 5, 6, 7 years. They got a rookie quarterback. They built around them. Like the Philadelphia Eagles, when they had Wentz, they went and bought a defense and they won a Super Bowl. And other teams have done that too. And they don't always win the Super Bowl, but they get pretty darn close with that rookie window. So I'm a big fan of the way they're operating right now. And next year, once all the Kirk money comes off the books, they'll have even more cap space. Next year, they can really splash and bolster that defense.
Reggie, you think that's a good way to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably what they've wanted to do for a while. And when you talk about the whole competitive rebuild thing from Kwesi, I think that's exactly what they're trying to do. And I'm with Sam. Yeah, once they have that Kirk money fully off the books, I think you got a rookie quarterback for the next 4 years. It'll be year 2 next year. You build around him and really make things easier on him so he doesn't have to do much, and you really get a chance to evaluate him when you have a team around him that can win. And then, a few years goes by, you kind of assess, hey, is this the guy? And then you move forward. And then, of course, you become top heavy at that point. But right now, I think they're building the right way. And that's why I say, like, you know, if it costs $10-11 million to go out and get a Stephon Gilmore, you could do it for a year. Just go ahead and do it while you have the flexibility and you don't have to pay a quarterback $40, $50, $60 million right now.
Julia, do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're drafting a rookie as high as you do as a quarterback, you're playing the long game. And I think that they're playing the long game well. So also when you have a guy like the whole jab at Justin Jefferson, like no one else can act like that because no one else has Justin Jefferson. So it's a totally different ball game for the Vikings. And I think that they're playing it the best way that they possibly can. I don't think there's any critiques really to be made at this point.
I don't think he's jabbing Justin. I think he's jabbing Kwesi because they don't have a quarterback now with big money. He's trying to, and it wasn't like a bad one. I don't think he even need to bring up the Vikings, but I think he's trying to get the media to leave him alone and realize they're not paying Kirk. Like they couldn't assign just like they're basically saying they couldn't assign Justin Jefferson with keeping Kirk. And so that's what he's trying to let people know. Like if we keep Dak and we pay Dak because that's what y'all want, I don't know if I can pay CD, but I got to pay Micah Parsons because blah, blah. But yeah, he's got a ton of quotes on there. I'm not going to read them all, but if you guys want to check it out, but Kwesi hasn't fired back, but I'm pretty sure the media might ask him, money thoughts, free agent, Justin Jefferson being $35 million. Do you think a player will pass him? All that's going to come up, but we'll talk about that at some point next week because there's a ton of football, people. We're back. Football is back, but we have to talk about Big Stem Media Day because there were some flops and there were some successes. We'll talk about that and much more coming up after word from our sponsors.
We're brought to you today by Gametime, and as Ron said, football is back. That means there are football games to attend and tickets to buy. So Saturday, August 10th, 3 p.m., US Bank Stadium, you can get in the door for a preseason football game against the Las Vegas Raiders for $13 at the Gametime app. $13. Sit in the upper deck. You can sit in the lower deck for like $56, be really close to the field. Some great deals at Gametime, and that applies to Major League Baseball as well. Concerts, comedy, theater, whatever tickets you need locally, get them with the Gametime app. The tickets often go down in price the closer you get to the start of the game. They're also an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. So after this Twins road trip, they'll be back home. Make sure you're checking out Gametime for all your ticketing needs. No hidden fees, all-in prices on the app, good panoramic views from your seats so you know exactly what you're getting, and impeccable Gametime ticket coverage with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets or NFL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Well, I'm pretty sure everybody's seen it. The tweets, the Instagram posts. I'm seeing a bunch of stuff today from Darius Taylor. He said I'm on the PJ with PJ. Like, dope. I like it. He went on a private jet. So that man, I went to Big Ten Media today when I played. We were, and no hating on any airline. I'm not gonna say what airline we were on. I'm not hating on it, but we went like coach. We didn't even get first class tickets because the college football had so many like different things they couldn't do for us back then. So we had to have like a coach ticket because they couldn't pay for a certain amount. We couldn't receive a gift up to a certain amount. We did get our own hotel room, but we didn't get like suits. We had to, like, our parents had to pay for our suits to go down there for Big Ten Media Day. Like, these guys have like suit sponsors and they on a private jet and they're getting food and charcuterie boards on jets. I can't say that word, Julia. You know that. Charcuterie? Is it charcuterie? Charcuterie? Yeah. Well, at least I didn't do like the dude from the Jets and Hard Knocks and say charcuterie board. Like, I said it right. Charcuterie.
Like, when said it right? It was one of those.
One of those defensive linemen, he couldn't say it, and the offensive lineman kept asking him because they were like, "Wait, what did you say?" And then he would say, "Like, ask him what he just had with his wife last night." He kept messing it up. He just could not say it. So it's charcuterie board. But they got the red carpet rolled out. But the one takeaway I have from this, PJ Fleck, I'm seeing a lot of different media outlets, especially the West Coast media outlets, because they've never really dealt with PJ. And they were all like, man, is it just me or does this guy have his stuff together? Another guy says, man, this guy, is he always this on? Because he's on right now. Another guy said, he's just a ball of energy. Like, this can't be real, right? And another guy said, like, man, does this guy have a 5-year plan for everything he does in his life? The answer is yes. Yes, he does. He has a binder. I've seen it, and it's ridiculous. But this is a man with a plan, and he's trying to roll the plan out. But Darius Taylor, his comments about Max Brosner and bringing the team together. He came in our show and talked about it as well. But bringing the team together, like they went there prepared. My guy, I love Deshaun Foster. That's my guy. He's been on the show, like play with me. You know, we got drafted together. I don't know if y'all saw his press conference, but Deshaun Foster got on the podium.
What happened?
He said, hey,
what happened?
I don't think they prepared him, but he said, hey, I'm Deshaun Foster. Played at UCLA, running back, NFL, Panthers, Super Bowl contender, da-da-da-da.
Some media training.
Right. It was bad. But we got it as players, though. He should know better. And he came on our show and was great. Like, he talked about recruiting, and he can't wait to go sit in some kid from Michigan's living room now and say, come to here, we'll beat Michigan. Like, so I don't know if he was like the lights or what, because this was his first one as a head coach. But he just froze. He was a deer in the headlights. And he's like, I don't know if you guys know about us, but we're in LA. There's two teams in that. I'm like, dude, you are UCLA and USC. You don't think we know that? Like, it's two teams in LA. We're one of them. Yeah. What y'all got for me? I was like, oh my God. I was like, bruh, come on. Like, let me come talk for you. Like, pick me. But yeah, so Deshaun Foster, clearly bright lights. And I did see some other stuff. He got it together as they went on and they started asking some questions. But of course, those are the clips that are going to hit the internet because it's spicy and it's funny. But PJ killed it. Deshaun Foster didn't do as well. USC was okay. Of course, Michigan, they were very quiet. My cousin plays for Michigan, Makari Page. He's down there. He's one of the top players of Michigan this year, one of the top safeties in the Big Ten. The players were talking, but Sharon Moore was kind of quiet. Like, you know, he's not hardball. So that was just my takeaway from Big Ten media today. I think the Gophers, at least from a media perspective, seem to be hitting a lot of people's tweets and a lot of different outlets' tweets about what PJ says, but we know PJ always has words. In your opinion, Julia, it doesn't matter media day. Like, it's when you put the pads on. But a lot of people are now saying this. They're saying, and I get the joke, but I also understand where they're going. They're saying if UCLA is not ready for the presser, they're not going to be ready for these Big Ten running backs and offensive linemen. I think Michigan destroyed Washington, like Nebraska, you know, like again. So I'm just saying, I don't know if USC and UCLA are ready for what the Big Ten is going to do to them, but do you think any of this matters?
No, absolutely not. No, I think this is just, you know, media's first chance to really get a question in to coaches that they don't maybe necessarily see all the time. It's a lot of like meeting with the networks to, this is when the coaches do all their sit downs with Big Ten Network and do all their sit downs with ESPN and, you know, or CBS. I'm assuming CBS was there. Now that CBS is with Big Ten. They do all their sit downs. The podium stuff, it doesn't really matter. And I don't think you can draw anything really from what goes on at the podium either. PJ's the exact same PJ that we all know, so that didn't tell us anything either. But yeah, I don't think you can say, they're not ready for this. Maybe it'll be different with Ohio State and Michigan, right? Because they're the powerhouses of the Big Ten. But everyone else, it's all up in the air. There's no like jumping to any conclusions based on what a coach does at the podium. Absolutely not.
Sam.
Yeah, I mean, I love how PJ always wins these press conferences. He always comes out of there looking very good. Program looks good. And college football just has such a different trajectory than the NFL offseason, where like we talk about how the Vikings are going to look all offseason. We know the whole roster, right? Like we know all of it. College is just different. Like we don't really put our antennas up until we get to this time of year. And then the first game happens and we get a much better idea of the freshmen, of the depth chart, of these new players, because the roster is always turning over. So it feels like always a bit of a mystery what we're going to get. And the Gophers jump right in against North Carolina in a month. So we're going to find out what this team is made of quickly. I just really hope this year that they don't get embarrassed by the new Pac-12 competition when they play USC, UCLA, and kind of get buried further in this conference. I hope the Gophers are up to the challenge and say, hey, this is our conference. You're joining our conference. We belong here. You're the newcomers. I hope that's the way it feels because they do play both of those LA teams. One of them is UCLA, guys. I don't know if you knew that. UCLA is in LA, and the Gophers, I think, will head there this year.
Reggie.
Yeah, PJ said if you're juiceful, you're useful. If you're juiceless, you're useless. I think it was interesting looking at that Big Ten graphic, though. He's going into year 8. At this point, like, you got to come with it. Like, you gotta come on with it. Like, it's time. Like, it was crazy watching his presser yesterday, just because, like, it was a ride. It was a ride. Like, I don't think he took a breath during that whole thing. And I think they only got 2 questions in from the media. Like, he was going. And it's funny because, like, he's kind of got that, like, I wouldn't even say a used car salesman. It's kind of like a new car salesman type deal. Like, he's trying to sell you a Ferrari, even though, like, that Ferrari needs to go in the shop a little bit. You wouldn't know that the team was a 5-win team last year, based on how he was, like, talking up the program and talking about all the momentum that they have and using all these buzzwords that, just it's a lot. It's a lot listening to PJ, and I listened to the whole thing, and I was just like, wow, like, okay, like he's really, like, he drank like 3 or 4 Mountain Dew before he got up there, had to. Like, it's just it was a lot. But I think this is the time, especially now that you've infused the Big Ten, as Sam said, with these Pac-10, Pac-12 teams or whatever. You gotta come with it, because you have a chance to either distinguish yourselves or just kind of drop down into the annals of the conference. And this is not the time for them to do that, especially in year 8. Like, they need to be a consistent winner now.
Well, we got a quick pause before we get out of here. We're going to have one quick fun question for everybody, but I want everybody to know SiriusXM is a proud partner of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Make sure you download the SXM app on the SXM Market. Just search Locked On Sports. Once you're in there, you can get all of our shows. After this, we'll come back and we have a really quick one before we get out of here. Told you the pause was quick. Well, really, people, scale of 1 to 10, the Olympics. Will you be watching it, Sam?
I'm a huge Olympics guy. I'm a 9.5. I mean, I know the time difference gets tricky, when it's in Europe. So some of the stuff's happening in the wee hours of the morning, but I'm going to be dialed. The swimming is my favorite. You got the basketball, soccer, tennis, golf. I mean, those are just 5 off the top of my head that I'm going to be interested in, and that's not the full list. Huge Olympics guy. Give it all to me. I want 4 TVs with it.
Reggie, 1 to 10.
10 out of 10, and you can watch the Olympics on your favorite channel, Care 11, each and every day, and we'll be wrapping it up every day. All the Olympics action, all the coverage you can count on, right on Care 11.
Julia, 1 to 10.
11. I've got my medal center ready. I've got my apps ready. I watch it all.
Well, we're DVRing it because I'm married to an Olympian. So, of course, we're recording a track and field. She was a gymnast as well. So we're going to be watching that. Our kids love it. But I'm going to be tuning in to basketball. But I'm Ron Johnson. That's Julia Daniels. That's Reggie Wilson. That's Sam Ekstrom. This has been Locked On Sports Minnesota Roundtable. Have a great weekend, people.